Gents, welcome back to another episode of Go-to-Market Crossroads. Zach, it looks like you're enjoying the spring weather behind you, not experiencing the pollen that I have to deal with in the lovely city of Atlanta, where we actually had a record count of pollen, which was terrible. But anyways, Harris, how are you doing? Let's go to you because you don't experience any pollen, and it's probably not too hot in Colorado.
No, quite the opposite. We got a little bit of spring snow, so we got a little dusting, which is great. We're going to go up skiing this weekend for probably last run of the season. Our 4.5-year-old is learning how to ski, and I switched to skiing myself after never really like falling in love with snowboarding, and I loved skiing. So yeah, we love the snow, and it's always goofy. Spring is goofy out here, but no pollen. I think the snow dampened all the pollen from coming out.
Did you start as a skier and switch to snowboarding and now back, or were you always a boarder?
I started as a snowboarder as an adult, in my early 20s, and I just never really. I like just being on my feet. I'm not like a big gear sports guy.
Yeah.
There's something about when your back is like downhill. It's just something about it. My brain just never got comfortable with it. But with skiing, I was like, okay, I know where I'm going. I can always pizza. I can always point my toes in and make a little pizza slice with the, if you're not familiar with the skis. I got the poles, which is great. I can push myself if I'm stuck. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into it.
Person right now, just FYI.
I know. Well, no, if you get stuck on like a catwalk, you know, it's very practical. And then with kids, they can grab the pole and you can pull them if they get stuck. It's just like, it's really like practical and you can kind of like, you always see where you're going. I don't know. But I mean, I'm definitely not getting any younger. I feel that. I feel that in the morning when I wake up.
My buddies, they've done like this trip with other guys the last 2 years out to Colorado. And both years, day one, same injury, two guys like broke their legs.
Oh.
So I think to your point about getting older, use caution. Where are you on like levels? Are you like, I don't even know levels of skiing because I don't ski, but is it like double black diamond a thing or what's?
I mean, it is, but not for me. I mean, it's on the mountain, but not for me. No. I have pools in my life where I have. We'll talk about our businesses today, but tremendous risk. And then in every other area, I like to be really, really small C conservative. So I am not risky at all. I don't do jumps. I don't do anything physically. You could probably maybe describe me as a scaredy cat. Maybe it's the best way to describe it.
Can you ski at all?
I started skiing, switched to snowboarding the last few years. I've not living in London for 3 years. There was not much snowboarding going on there, or skiing. And then since I got back, I moved back 3 years ago. Embarrassingly, I haven't been back up to Tahoe or anywhere. But yeah, I used to be like, I mean, I loved board sports. I grew up on a skateboard, throwing myself downstairs and handrails, and I have firmly entered. I love like mountain biking too, and I go like mountain biking with my buddies, and like used to be much more of a daredevil, and I have firmly entered the again, to your point, Harris, in other places I'm risky. In the action sports, I'm in the no longer is there anything to prove zone.
Yeah, that's what like Chart Mogul and Stripe screenshots are for. You see how crazy I am? Look at that! Look at that slope.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I need a broken collarbone on a mountain bike would severely that would really screw up the other part of the life that's consuming me.
All right, guys. Well, let's. Speaking of, I don't know if risk is the right word, but let's go into the business side that we just talked about. We're all entrepreneurs, so yes, we have a tolerance for risk, but we are now in April, which means if you are on the calendar year quarters, that means you ended Q1 and you're entering Q2. So I think this could be, we're all in different spaces and in different inflection points of businesses, but I think it'd be an awesome time just to take a step back, reflect on the takeaways for Q1, and then in light of what we saw, what are we prioritizing for Q2? So who wants to get us kicked off as it relates to some of the trends that you experienced in Q1?
I'm happy to go. We had a good Q1. We didn't have a lovable 0 to 40 million ARR in 4 months Q1, but we're happy with the team we got and what we're trying to do. We made some really good progress with our direct selling efforts, with our product, with partnerships, like these that are beginning to bear fruit, and doing co-selling together. We are definitely Q2, obviously, we have VC backers, so growth is always number one. I guess that is always priority number one. But I'd say we have definitely we got 9 people on the team now here. We are the real. What will catapult us to the next level is we need to hire, and really where the business feels the most tension right now, and transparently, like where I feel the most tension is, Octave still feels like the Octave source code, Julian's my co-founder. It's like that software only runs in our head right now. And we need to start really bleeding that out into a team that can start taking over some of this stuff. Cause if it's all single threading through us, no matter what we're doing on the sales side, the product, the business, the company won't scale. And so that's frankly, besides keep on selling, I've started to turn a lot of my attention to hiring and recruiting, and what's the team we're going to build look like. And we're going to truly emerge from the garage and go get an office, and all those to starting to, I think, enter that next level for our company. So that's again, won't ever end, hopefully, or at some point that's pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But yeah, that's Q2 is we're really having to spend much more of our time on hiring and recruiting than we have ever before.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you in a second.
Yeah.
Harris, how about you on your side?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we're fortunate. Growth is steady. I mean, we grow 10 to 20% every month, and we have for almost 2 years. I mean, so it's just steady. And so I think, for us, and that was true in Q1 as well. Fortunately,
Nice.
I think that, and that's net. So we're retaining. So, I think we've made a lot of investments on the customer success and retention side. I think that for growth, for us, what it looks like is, partners are huge for us. We sell through agencies. It's about 80% of our business is selling through growth agencies, and to a small extent, RevOps type, more CRM focused agencies. But as we talked about a little bit in the past, I think that most of the ecosystem is just not really in a position to be able to handle this stuff. They're just not making these changes. They're on the wrong side of the GTM Crossroads. So for us, it's mostly no's. It's 9 no's and it's 1 yes, because we are bootstrapped, so we're bandwidth constrained, and we just got to say no to a lot of feature ideas and even some bigger things that I'm pretty excited about. And so we just got to go to the one thing where it's okay, this is obviously what's coming up from users. Let's go build that new thing. And so for us, that's continuing doing what we're doing on the partner side, but it's omni-channel. We're really consistently hearing from users that they want to be able to get that omni-channel data inside of the CRM. And so specifically for email right now, so that's considering LinkedIn, and then it's phones. WhatsApp is also kind of interesting, but and that is increasingly a thing, which is interesting. But yeah, so for us, for our own growth, if we keep stay disciplined in terms of what we're shipping, continue to sell through partners, and then for our direct deals, I'm working on our sales process, and just doing a better job of that. I think that I've definitely noticed some deals are slowing down. There's just a lot of uncertainty. And so I'm just trying to do a better job understanding value. And I have a 2-stage process, which we've talked about a little bit previously, but I'm doing that and it's working. I'm getting the book a meeting from a meeting that is resulting in deals closing and people not ghosting me as much as they were before. So unfortunately, I'm in a stage of the business where it's just really kind of boring discipline stuff. Hopefully we keep growing, but the stuff that I'm thinking about is just it's just sit down and eat your veggies kind of thing. It's nothing like super exotic. I mean, I think we're doing it some things interesting in interesting ways, but it's all just kind of basic stuff. But we did get SOC 2 type 2, which was pretty sweet. So that's compliance and compliance and moving up market. I think that's like complementary with the idea of our sales process, because we're selling to bigger companies too. So I think that's going to help.
It's great. Well, I can attest to your comment on focus. I remember our first conversation at Inbound. I asked you for an integration, and you said no. He is very laser focused on the things that he's doing.
Yeah.
So that's impressive. Yeah, our quick exec summary for RP was Q1 was great, and I'm very thankful for that. Like we had for those that have followed our journey, last year was, I think probably how you described it, Harris, with like the whole like eat your veggies. It was like get back to sustainability, get the company healthy. And FY25 was like, let's get back into a growth mode, kind of like measured aggression. And there's like the Sam Altman quote that talks about like, regardless of how you go about Sam Altman, the quote was basically around like growth covers a lot of problems. And so it's just nice for we're back in the growth mode. We hit like 120% of our qualified deals. We were at 99% of our bookings target, and then we hit 120% of our retention target. So overall, it was a good quarter for us. I'll get into Q2 in a second. But Zach, one of the things I wanted to come back to you on, and then Harris, I have a question for you. But Zach, what did you see like Q1? You talked about it was a positive quarter for y'all. Were there any deal trends that you're seeing in terms of industry, employee size, the persona, like who you're competing against, that the kind of like to pull that out, some of the themes that you saw?
Yeah. I would say where we're trying to lean in more, where I think the market's pulling us and we want to go in this direction, and we kind of think it's more differentiated, so we kind of have the like very high conviction, is being very API integration first, and then this is a little in the weeds, but like we're seeing a lot of like we're starting to talk to larger customers that have interesting first party data. And that first party data could be CRM data, it could be conversation intelligence, things coming from call transcripts. It's also starting to be people that have PLG motion, and they have actual product data. And this is something I'd say we're seeing like early, like a few deals are starting to appear, and like it's something we always wanted to do, and like maybe now it's time to really go this direction. Is a lot of these PLG companies, they have this like extreme long tail of oftentimes can be very high volume of like people signing up, getting in the product. They're from a business, they're a B2B user, and like they're just kind of getting put in like your standard life cycle marketing drip. Hey, thanks for signing up. Here's our docs, here's our guides. 2 days later, hey, check out this video, blah, blah, blah. We're starting to see companies that are looking at putting a little more of like a sales assist kind of like automated motion behind that, leveraging a like, hey, you're a DTC e-commerce company, right? Like they're starting to want to be armed with a bit more of a sales perspective, like, hey, saw you signed up, using some of that product data to really like tighten up the like relevancy of like, hey, we know you, saw what happened, and really infusing that into like, hey, companies like yours are doing XYZ with us. And so like that is like been very interesting. We've always kind of had this dream of like, all right, when you just live and die in like pure cold outbound, like that's a scary firing line to be on every day. And if we as a business can start getting more into the like, hey, we're helping you across all these different touch points, and the warmer, right, and even not just the warm, the people that have like signed up. So we've started to see that, and yeah, I feel excited about like we've built the API in ways that can already like we can ingest a lot of that like rich data, and I think that's going to be a bet we make on the product side, and see if we can go take down a few more of these customers and really build like okay, like we've done this now half dozen times, and like here now let's go tell the world about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. In terms of the conversational intelligence, the product led side, to your point about intent signals, that like That's a lot higher intent than some of the other ones that we've discussed in the past. So
Right,
that's pretty
right.
interesting and unique that you're able to go that far. Speaking of cold calling, Harris, one of the things that you had mentioned is this omni-channel kind of desire. So I guess maybe let's take a step back. What is driving that omni-channel push that you're seeing? And then how are you thinking about solving that? Because from what my um, what's the right word? Limited knowledge. You were more on the email side. So how are you thinking through, hey, in light of this expansion of the need, how am I solving for it? So what's driving it? And then two, how are you solving for it?
Yeah, what we're hearing from, and what we're seeing is that people just prefer to get their information in different ways, right? I mean, it's just like not, I mean, this is an all bound, approach. Dee from your team had a great post about, and Kendra too. Both had great posts this week on LinkedIn from RP about this and kind of what's happening on the all bound side. Maybe it's just different ways to catch people at different times, or they prefer it, or whatever. It's just how you get through the noise. And I think like in the first generation of this with the sales loft and the outreach of the world, you had a single rep in a single seat, and they would have like a sequence across multiple channels. And then that model has shifted. There are still a lot of teams being successful with that at lower volume where they have target accounts. But we're seeing this unbundling of the go-to-market function where now you have like a GTM engineer type person, to use Clay's term, but probably other words you could use to describe it. But basically, it's kind of becoming a little bit more like marketing. And so what was easier in the beginning was that there were tools that were built for that, and they were email-based tools first for a lot of reasons. Like email itself, it's an open standard. There's a lot of tooling around it. Validation is easier. It's relatively consistent and stable as like a form of identification. If you look at the CRM, like HubSpot uses email as a unique identifier, so you can query HubSpot through an email address. Like there's lots of technical reasons why I think, anyway, but now we're seeing like, okay, people are they're getting a lot out of that, but there's diminishing returns. And so they're saying, okay, what else can we do with other channels? So I think that's why. It's just like the reason why SalesLoft and Outreach of the world built it in the first place, like all those reasons are still true. And if you're going to have the term that I've been increasingly using, I'm kind of falling in love with it, is programmatic outbound, where I think that this type of, it's becoming like marketing. It's becoming like advertising. Mm-hmm. And, people like Eric Nowoslawski talk about email as being like almost like a private ad network. And so it's like different types of private ads that you can run across this list of prospects. And so there's just like tooling missing for programmatic outbound that exists for programmatic digital advertising. And so that I think why it's been like a little bit slow to take on, along with other like platform risks. I mean, phones, it's just hard to find someone who's willing to pick up the phone, make a phone call, just from a staffing perspective, and then getting good numbers. But now there's increasingly providers like SureConnect that are scoring phone numbers for propensity to respond. And so now that rep efficiency is going way up because they're making, 4 calls and having a conversation. There are also the parallel dialers like Orem and stuff, where you can just kind of rock through 1,000 numbers at once kind of thing. So anyway, there's just new tech that's kind of catching up. I feel like email was first for whatever reason, for whatever combination of reasons. So let me just stop there. And I'm curious, like if you guys are hearing and seeing that, or how much of that you're agreeing with. I mean, Zach, from a messaging perspective, this messaging problem, it totally translates across channels. Totally. It's not just like a single channel problem.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like I've heard that the notion of the private ad network, like it's like a new way of like thinking about it. And I will like anecdotally, I will say like the customers that are most successful that I'm seeing with cold outbound, like it's first a mindset shift of just like email was treated as like, oh, it's this transactional channel. It's like, it's a performance marketing channel. It's like I put emails in, I get 30-minute meetings on the calendar out. And it's like, that is extremely difficult to do now. But you have this like, oh, wait, what if we view this as yet another one of our touch points? This one, email, happens to have this like unique property of like, I can actually kind of figure out exactly who I want to deliver this ad or this impression of our company and our offering and what we do. And like, if I treat it that way as like, all right, hey, I spent a lot of money on Google and Meta and all these other places to deliver ads. Like, oh, what if I rethink how I think about email? Like, it's not free and I can't just treat it like crap. Like, I got to be more thoughtful and intentional. And like those companies, like, no surprise, I'd say, like, they're outperforming, because it's like, it's the compounding you get across these touch points and the trying to be, a bit more value first and like not just demanding time from people. Like that seems to be where there's momentum picking up. And I see like the teams that are making it work are just like, yeah, it's like first rethinking the like, what are our expectations here? How do we treat this? And then the toolings and the system and the processes follow.
Yeah, totally. And funny enough, like paid ads are kind of coming back, and now some of these outbound agencies are talking about adding paid ads. So, it's really interesting. One last thing, and then Brendan, I want to know what you're seeing, because I mean, you're running a $10 million agency, which you've said on this before, so I know that's not a secret. You're running a major agency at scale, so I'm curious what you're seeing. But the last thing I'll just say is that Taylor Heron, he had an interesting post on LinkedIn this week about the campaigns they're running for RB2B. And something that's interesting is that they're sending those campaign follow-ups, and then the offer in the email. So you get deliverability right first, and that's where we've talked about before how technical that is. But then the offer is like, hey, here's a free for life plan that you can use. Like there's no meeting request, there's no hard pitch. It's just like a really straightforward, clean offer. And for our B2B, we've talked about it before, but so it's just like another touch point where you're getting in front of that person and you're giving them something that they can take action on or just learn about you. So yeah, I definitely think there's like a shift happening. And so yeah,
I really like the concept of how to think about your email strategy. How does it, to where you guys are going with that? And I did like the programmatic concept. How does it change the copy of the email? Like, are you saying it's more kind of informational as opposed to transactional? Like what is I guess for our listeners that are hearing this, just saying, okay, I can buy into that concept. Now, what does that mean in terms of how I should approach the email inbox?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can just say like some of the offers that we're seeing are different than they were before. So if you think about like before, you had a sales rep that had access to Zoom info or a Dun and Bradstreet, and they were working, some limited number of target accounts, and they would write individual emails, and they would create a task, and then they would write a second email. And the goal was always for that rep to get meetings for themselves on their calendar as an SDR, if they're following that old predictable revenue model, and then hand that off to an AE. But if outbound is shifting to this more programmatic outbound, it's becoming a little bit more of like moving up funnel a little bit, becoming a little bit of an extension of marketing. Then we're seeing offers that are like, for example, using outbound to distribute content. Hey, we just put together this calculator or this white paper, or just posted this on LinkedIn, thought you might find it interesting. So as a distribution channel for content in a way that's really light touch. Or let's see, what else? I mean, I think that you can use a certain channel when other channels aren't available. So I think that if you have multiple channels available to reach someone, or if you can have signals-based things changing what you're doing, I think that's where the programmatic piece comes in. So the question is what are you emailing? It depends. It depends on what your content strategy is. It depends on what signals you can track for them. It depends on what you know about them from an ICP perspective. And the more you know about them, the more likely it is that you can find something to kind of for them to grab onto. That doesn't necessarily have to be a meeting today. I mean, our goal, of course, is growth. It's revenue. We want closed won deals, obviously, but it's not as straight line as it used to be. And so that I think is kind of overall what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think there's a few places the rubber meets the road in real tactical differences. Okay, what's the CTA? What's the call to action? Is it, do you have time to chat for 30 minutes? Or is it something softer? Is it, can I send you this? Can I send you a video? Can I share companies just like yours we've worked with in your industry? Things that are easy opt-in. I'd say that's a tactical piece. But then I'd say again, the not to make this too abstract theory based, but it just when you're developing messaging, if the goal is how do I create this Rubik's Cube that somebody will agree to meet with me, that's just kind of a different equation than if you're just hey, I want this person to understand we're doing really cool stuff that solves a problem I think they have. And like, I want to deliver that message. Like, hey, I have a perspective that I think I'm right about. I'm not totally sure, but might be able to help you. Like, it's got to just, and this is where it's a blend of human and AI. Like, AI cannot figure this out on its own. This is like, it takes the operator who's been in the business, knows the offer, knows the market, and like, yeah, we can start using tools. You can use tools like us or many others to help automate a lot of this, but it's like, this is where the art still lies, and you just got to think of like, what are we trying to motivate people to do, to understand about us, to feel about our brand, like I think those things are like becoming more important again. Like I think there's going to be a renaissance of the importance of brand, like, will surface again. Not that it's gone away, but maybe just for in B2B more so than B2C. Like I think it's going to grow in importance and kind of like how strategic companies need to think about it.
Yeah, I think the it's almost like rewiring the way we approach go to market, and it's going from a transaction to a relationship. It's kind of what I'm hearing. And one of the things that actually Rob Jones and I have been talking a lot about is like, how do you capture this? And it's, we're talking about a lot. This actually is, it's funny that you guys are bringing this up. This is a lot of what we're going to be talking about Southbound, our conference in May in Atlanta. But there's this idea of like turn my funnel into a tunnel, and it's we're working on that. Yeah, we're working on how to like frame this, but the idea of like a tunnel is like continuity, and it really is all about this like idea of like the customer experience and value and relationship, and a tunnel can go very deep, and so there's like no end to it. And so we're trying to like, from a visualization perspective, even what you guys are talking about of like how do we approach using the idea of the programmatic outbound, but it's just like, how do we think about it in that way, where it is very much value centric, recurring value, as opposed to I want to just force you down something. It's just a different mindset that we're playing around with.
Totally.
So if you guys like the funnel,
and the lineup at Southbound is insane, by the way. I mean, I'll let you talk about it, but some of the companies that are speaking there are nuts. I mean, this isn't just like, we talk a lot about B2B SaaS, but this is about way more than that, right? I mean, we're talking about things that are affecting whole parts of the economy that are experiencing a ton of change right now with everything going on economically. Well, not just in the US, like around the world. I mean, things are up in the air right now, big time, I mean, not to turn this into a news show, but Jesus.
Well, I think that was going back to this idea of like, everyone's talking about AI and we just talk about transaction versus relationship. And it's like, well, no, we really need to be mindful of the human element. And that was that whole idea, like some things change, but other things remain the same. And at the end of the day, we are people selling to people. And so why not learn from some of the best brands that we've seen, like in that B2C space? So like Horst Schulze, who ran the Ritz-Carlton, and then you have Dan Cathy on the Chick-fil-A side, who they've been the #1 in customer satisfaction for I think 8 years in a row now. So it's like, hey, what if you guys done, like, just using those two as example, how have you guys thought through the experience you create for your customer to translate from a transaction to a relationship that we can learn from? And then like Donald Miller, who is like best-selling author, and the story brand framework is all about the customer as the hero and you're the guide. And so, I mean, we were very much like, let's take these principles and then how do we apply that with some of these concepts that like a winning by design is talking about with a bow tie model. So we're trying to marry that to your point, Harris. Like, we don't claim to know the best things. And so let's use these like thought leaders to really help it not only inspire, but then apply that into our go-to-market. So that's the intent behind who's there and why we're doing it that way.
That's awesome. That's a killer lineup. It's funny. I always find myself drawn to like there are a lot of lessons from B2C, and just like they get to operate at like a crazy scale, and like they go deeper on like the psychology aspect in ways than oftentimes like we go in B2B, because it's harder in B2B where it's like you're dealing with buying committees, and it's like, it's not one buyer psychology. It's like, what's the buying psychology of this company's culture, But it's just like there are a lot of lessons to be drawn from there. So that's going to be cool to hear. And like, we're in this like, not just the news of the day is like, things are in flux, but like I think people's teams, how they're growing, what they're hiring for, how they're thinking about their markets. Like we're gonna, it's a interesting time, but lots of opportunity as well.
Well, yeah, I think we already see the Amazon effect of like how people want to buy. So you mentioned PLG earlier. So there's like even just the experience of how we want to purchase, but then there's like the commitment. You're seeing it. And I was talking to John Dick, who runs customer success now at HubSpot. John Dick ran marketing, and now he's in CS, which is kind of a weird. It seems weird. Like, why would you go from marketing to CS? But I think it speaks into the B2C concept, and it's like, hey, no, we have to have recurring value, recurring impact. We have to earn the right to win their business on like every day. And like, how do we bring kind of your point about like programmatic outbound? There's almost like this programmatic like customer experience where marketing actually plays a role in that. So I think there's a lot we can unpack on that topic. I know we are at the top of our time, but guys, I'd love to talk more because there's a lot here as it relates to what we're seeing, and maybe it's gonna be a fun kind of way to set this up of just kind of what's going on in our businesses and what we're experiencing since last week, just to have a pretty open dialogue and hopefully I liked it. Hopefully the audience likes it too. But I think it's a good way for us to continue to learn and challenge assumptions that we have as we build together.
The meeting invite on the calendar, it started as a GTM therapy, so we can make it a little more some therapy. We can get on the couch.
That's right. Yeah. For all negative feedback, please direct that to Brendan Tollison on LinkedIn. Let us know. Send us what you think. Really, don't hold back. Just let Brendan know. Positive feedback sent to Zach and I.
Feedback's a gift. All right, gents. Well, enjoy the conversation. I'll see you all next week.